Welcome, welcome. Got people trickling in. Super excited for you guys to be here today. This is our second episode of the Creatorland Community Launchpad collaborative webinar series. And honestly, this has been really fun. The first one, we had incredible people in the audience asking tons of questions. So I would love for you guys to be just as active as the first group. In fact, if anyone right now was in the first webinar, go ahead and comment in the chat and let us know that you were here. And then perfect. Ashley, awesome. Welcome. Thank you for coming back. And just in FYI, I know we had a couple little technical things that we've been figuring out as bugs. So last webinar, we did not have like an auto save for the chat feature. So unfortunately, we lost out on the extra questions that we didn't have time to get to. So if you remember what your question was from last webinar, go ahead and drop it in the chat. We've got that on the auto save this time. So we are going to be following up. Any questions we don't get to in today's webinar, in today's discussion, we're going to try and follow up with you guys and make sure you get a follow-up email with answers and resources to all of those questions. So I want to give a couple more minutes for people to trickle in. And in the meantime, we're going to run a poll. We're going to run a poll every webinar because it's a lot of fun to see who's in the crowd and where everyone's at. So go ahead. You should see it popping up right now. Got just 3 easy questions for you. First one's, how long have you been creating content for? Which platform is your main focus right now? And how many brand deals have you done? Which is a new question this week, obviously, because we have the incredible Paula Dhier, who's going to be just dropping like such an insane amount of value for you guys. She's got incredible, like very rounded experience, both from the creator side and the brand and the platform side. So I'm really excited for some of the insights she's going to be able to share that like we're just not going to find other places. All right, give it another minute here. We've got most of the people have submitted, but some people like to think about their answers, which is exciting. And I'm gonna, while we're waiting on the rest of this poll, I want to, of course, welcome and thank co-host Brian Freeman. Name says Creatorland Official, but his name's Brian.
Yeah.
Friends, and we're
Okay, I
all
gotta
friends
fix that.
here. So Brian, go ahead and for anyone who's new here, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, welcome everybody to webinar number 2. My name is Brian Freeman. I'm the CEO and founder at Creatorland, and I'm really excited to be doing this webinar series. I think this is a topic that I have had so many conversations with creators about, including one of the first times I ever spoke with Paula, probably 2.5 years ago. She was on our wait list, was an early user of Creatorland. I don't remember the context of why we had a phone call initially, but I'm really glad we did. I know. So we met through Creatorland. It's that networking story. And on that first discussion, she brought up to me how she built her relationships with her clients. And that included kind of following up, doing very professional things that were the first time I had heard about a creator doing that with their clientele. It made total sense because this is the kind of thing you see working really well when you're building an agency or building any kind of client direct service. And I was like, that has stuck with me for the last 2.5 years as being an amazing best practice. And so I'm really excited that she's going to get to share that with you guys today. And that's me. So welcome.
Perfect. And real quick, I'm going to share these poll results. And then Paula, if you could introduce yourself after that. And I also just want to call out, Ashley commented in the chat that she's starting her influencer managing agency within her social media management company. So I think a lot of this is really going to, be super useful to you. But also, Paula, if you could keep that in mind, not just from the creator lens, but like people who are trying to get into that agency world or the platform side, making sure that we can drop some bombs for them as well. All right, so I just shared the results. Hopefully you can see it on your screen. So we've got a lot of people who are in the 1 to 3 year range, which is a really exciting time, I think, because you've got like kind of enough experience where you start to feel like you even know what you're doing, but you really still have this, amazing trajectory ahead of being able to grow. We've got some people with a lot of experience here, 4 to 6 or 7+ years, makes you almost an OG in the industry. And we've got some people just starting out, which is amazing as well, because this some of what Paula and I talked about on our call is going to be so incredible for helping anyone who's especially just starting out. Looks like in terms of platforms, we got mostly Instagram and TikTok. Very interesting. I think on our last call, we had like quite a bit of YouTubers,
Yeah.
or a high proportion of YouTubers. So that's really interesting to see. And then brand deals. So we've got actually most of you have done brand deals. That's incredible because guess what? As we all know, brand deals are pretty hard to get. So this is going to be really exciting. Um, Excited to jump in right now. Paula, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Like Brian said, we met about 2.5 years ago through Creatorland. And I've been in the creator economy for about 10 years, which makes me the dinosaur of the group. But very happy to be here and share some knowledge with you guys. I've seen the creator economy from every angle, the brand side, agency, as a creator myself, affiliate. So hopefully approaching this from a well-rounded point of view. And happy to jump in and answer any questions that you guys have.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. So I think to start things off, let's go ahead and could you just share a little bit more on your journey? Where did you start out? What were kind of the key transition points of where you've gone through along the way? And if maybe in addition to that, you could share like what's one particular thing you learned or gained perspective on in each of those, kind of points of your career.
Sure. So I started out in the magazine world and created a strategy for how to take that digital. There wasn't one existing. So how do we transform that print magazine into something not that you hold in your hands, but you see every day on your screens? So created a strategy nationwide for that magazine to start featuring its clients in a social media presence. I was working with a lot of smaller luxury retailers and brands and a lot of people that were brand new to social media. And as I was building that kind of strategy, I realized none of them really knew how to kick it off. They were overwhelmed by how to start even an Instagram page for their business. So I started helping them with content creation, growing that. And when I sold the magazine, I transitioned to social media myself, and kind of putting everything under my name instead of the magazine name. It seemed like a natural transition after I sold the magazine to continue on with the aesthetic and the photo shoots and the content creation and the writing. And then started just consulting from there. I still consulted with the magazine. I still had a handful of businesses that turned to me to create content, and then started to just build my platforms, and really focused on creating relationships. And I think that that's where the majority of this talk and this knowledge is going to come from, of meeting people in the industry, and forming those relationships that where I found myself in rooms that I didn't belong in, based off of my follower count. And I know that that is such like a jarring thing for creators starting out. But as I started with these partnerships of Clicquot and Porsche, and they were amazing partnerships. I was so proud to do them. And I kind of looked around like, I don't know why I'm here in a lot of them. And it was through those relationships and the way that I approached every deal. Now I'm still consulting. I'm VP of marketing for an influencer marketing platform. I'm also a talent manager, and I've managed a handful of talent with over 10 million in reach, and have now worked with more brands than I can count, both on their behalf and through me. So that's a little bit of a synopsis of the past 10 years.
Amazing. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Awesome. So, Paul, I'm curious a little bit on the diving into the origin story, because those tactical moves are where a lot of these people, or a lot of the people who are using Creatorland and maybe who are on this webinar are at right now, where they're like, okay, that sounds really good. So what does that mean? And where would you put kind of the personal brand side of things? Is that first, is that evolving out of taking these actions? Walk us through some of the tactical things that you did to open those doors and build those relationships.
Sure. So with the magazine, I was, that was under the magazine's name, and I proudly grew that social. And then when I sold it, I realized there was nothing tied to me. I had worked so hard, but the portfolio was all tied to the magazine. So that's when I launched everything under a personal name. And I think it's important to realize that your personal brand is all you own and all you really hold on to. So as you switch roles or switch jobs or you're consulting on things, you have to remember, like, your name is tied to you, and that's going to carry through in everything you do. So I started to really concentrate on where can I make my mark, not even just on my social pages, but the opportunities to collaborate with other people came around. I was very heavy into interior design and styling and the aesthetics of spaces and content creation, and really focused heavily on that, and just found people to creatively connect with. And that's kind of how I built that consulting firm. There was a wonderful fashion designer out of LA. I was like, hey, have you ever thought about launching a home brand and going in that direction? Like, what's your plan for influencer relations? And just trying to see how can my knowledge and my expertise fit into these people that I looked up to and that I wanted to work with. How can I insert myself and kind of offer my help and services? And through that, I created those incredible relationships that have lasted so long. I still work with that fashion designer. I still work with interior designers that I just asked, hey, I'll never forget, I messaged an interior designer in New York I knew he was doing my favorite hotel. And I was like, hey, need an intern for the weekend? I was 32 and had a full-time job and had been doing content creation for so long. I was like, can I tag along? I'll shoot you guys. I'll do behind the scenes photos. I've stayed at the hotel millions of times. Let me come hang out. And he's like, sure. So ways that you can grow the portfolio without feeling like you're bringing everybody down, but how can I lift other people up and have a fun experience? And again, grow my name and my branding and everything around me.
That's amazing. So I'm going to kind of follow up on this. I think this is a really useful topic. So how many of these different projects, collaborations, things that could be positioned as a brand deal to someone in the future, how many of those did you do for free before you started getting kind of paid ones? And then from a, again, very tactical standpoint in terms of reaching out, did you have a consistent number of people you were reaching out to on a regular basis? Did you allot a certain amount of time, or were you just kind of scrolling through your feed, seeing what popped up? Did you have practical kind of strategy you were implementing there?
I think something that was very helpful is that I always had and still have a full-time job outside of content creation. That allowed me to be very picky with what I did. I stuck with the things I actually love, the things I actually do. And I would never, I wasn't promoting competing products in the same week because I drink the same champagne. I wear the same jeans. This is my beauty routine. It doesn't change. So I was loyal to brands up front as a customer. So that kind of naturally fell into, hey, there's this influencer that's mentioned us 25 times. Maybe we should reach out to her, because they knew I was already such a loyal customer. So some of those in the beginning were, hey, yes, of course, I would love a free outfit. I would love, to go to this hotel and travel. I will say a lot of my content is pretty travel heavy. A lot of these luxury hotels that I was and still am promoting, that's they're handing me a very expensive experience, and I'm creating the content. I actually love doing it. And I take pride in saying I work with the Four Seasons or I work with Ritz-Carlton. So a lot of those are still, you have to weigh that experience and your work. And sometimes if they're coming out even, yes, say yes to that experience, or say yes to that partnership. But I would say a lot of that loyalty and support of the brand in the beginning turned into those paid partnerships later. And they were happy to hand me the partnership because I'd already given them so much quality content. They knew what the content was going to look like before they offered the partnership.
Amazing. So it sounds like you had a ton of intention going into this versus I know a lot of influencers and creators that I've talked to and been friends with, the navigation feels a lot more sporadic in terms of what can I get right now instead of what can I build for the future. So I'm wondering if you can talk just a little bit more about what are some of the things that any creator can do from a strategic building upon your brand. Like, what does that even mean to build your brand and have it be aligned with the potential, or your personal brand with the potential, business brands or product brands that you want to attract and work with?
I would say now more than ever, brands are really doing audits of influencers and their profiles and doing more of a deep dive into their content before they approach them for a brand deal. Just within this past week, 3 of the creators that I work with verbally said, I'm going through the brand audit right now. So they're looking to book these large deals, but the brand is spending a lot of time looking through their content. So very often I'll hear, I want to be in the beauty influencer space. And then I'll look at their page and there's not one get ready with me. There's not one beauty product mentioned. Brands are looking at your profiles, looking for the natural fit, looking to see if you're actually using their products, if you're familiar with the brand, or if, also if you're posting a competitor every day. So if you are wanting to work with, say, make a dream list of 10, you need to make sure that that's naturally worked into your content. And I know some influencers might be like, well, that's giving it away for free. No, you shouldn't want to work with brands or people that you don't naturally love. So I would say do that, incorporate that up front, and it shouldn't be hard if you're actually doing that on a daily basis. And then those will follow. Like I said before, be a loyal customer, and then the brand deals come.
So I want to try and recap that. So you're saying create a magnet for your dream kind of clientele, and make sure that, if you're making 10 pieces of content, some portion of those on a constant basis check the boxes of those dream clientele, whether that's products that you own and love and have, or, would you say that's also true to start to create kind of a lane in your content around that, where you don't necessarily have to always be giving away essentially free promo, but it's, being intentional about, like, this is really the type of brand that I would want to hire me, and that content needs to have incorporated into it, something that would resonate with that brand on an ongoing basis. So would you be looking at the brand's content and the reposted photos and tagged photos for them and seeing the other types of creators that they've worked with and type of creative that's come out of that brand partnership, and then replicating that, or doing your own thing?
Examples on that. The first is, I love when influencers, I see it happen often, create a series with the brand partnership in mind. I've done this as well. I love secondhand designer fashion. I love that space. So I created a series called Buy It Before I Do, where I share my favorite things from the secondhand market. They're all from the same 2 sites because those are the sites I shop on all the time. I'm linking those through Shop My, so I'm getting affiliate money if those sell, but I'm still mentioning those 2 websites, hoping that they see the series, they see I've done 15 videos on this. It's such a natural partnership. It's such a natural fit. They see that I'm a customer. They slide right into that series as a brand partner. If they don't, it's still something I love. I'm still getting the affiliate money. So creating a series with that in mind of, like, I know I'm going to create these 10 TikTok videos. I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to work that in. I feel like that is a great way to do that. And organically mentioning them, especially like in Instagram stories, making sure that you tag them a few times, they get that ping in their DMs and they start to recognize your name. I've heard so many times when creators are wanting to pitch the brand's like, oh, we haven't heard of you yet. We're not aware of you. You need to be in the brand's DMs, not necessarily saying, give me a brand partnership, but with those organic mentions, you guys need to start doing that back and forth. They need to, when your name comes through the email, they need to be like, oh, I've heard that before. So that's definitely one way to do it. The other way will come back to me. I know I said I had 2 things. I got so far into that one, I've forgotten the other one. It'll come back.
That's okay. I've got a question here. So when you're talking about, kind of like building this relationship, even before you've had a conversation with a brand, through mentioning them, through showing up through that tag in the DMs, hopefully also organically on their feed, or other like your followers tagging them in the comments. When's the right time to go in for an actual pitch or to try and start that process? Is there like a minimum number of videos you think people should have done? Like how should a creator know when the timing is kind of right?
And it came back to me, the other thing, Brian, when you said go back and look at the tagged content. It's important to try to kind of figure out the brand schedule, right? If they just had a product launch, it might be a second before they have another product launch. If that you see a bunch of influencers going live, and that was, say, in January, try to hit them for Q2 and say, hey, I saw this brand partnership. I saw a lot of people participate. I would love to be considered for this in the next quarter. Know that they have budgets per quarter. You don't want to hit them at the end of the quarter because then the budget is gone. They've already used it. So you want to kind of recognize that so you don't get that no. Say, I would love to be considered for next round. I know I just saw all of this go live. Chances are, if you're seeing content go live with a lot of creators, that budget's gone. You want to hit them for the next round. Brian, like you said, of going through and looking at tagged photos, specifically when I do travel content, I am doing that to make sure I don't copy the photo. I'm going through all of the tagged photos of that hotel to see what angle has not been shot, what meal has not been ordered, and a picture has not been taken of it, because you have to know that the hotel wants to reuse your photos. I don't want to give them the same photo they have 20 times over. So I'm making sure that I'm delivering a Dropbox of images that they've never seen before. Similar with brand content, don't regurgitate the same content. You are different, you are unique, make your content show that.
Great.
And so what I'm going to do a little recap here. So what I'm hearing you say is you want your content, in terms of aligning with a brand, you want it to match things the brand is looking for, both like aesthetically and from a promotional aspect, but you also want to find a gap so that you're creating value for that brand. So, in terms of how you navigate identifying what are the things that they're actually looking for, either from an aesthetic or a promotional, like how do you go about doing that from looking at their page, or like what ways have you accomplished being able to understand kind of what the brand wants?
And I will say that some brands are much more giving with creative space, some are not. But if it's a brand working with influencers, I would say for the most part, there is kind of an ethos there. You'll see that wording, you'll see the color scheme, you'll see the types of photos they're using. Are they more posed photos? Are they natural photos? Are they product photos? Are there people in their photos? So you can see kind of what they're going for. How do I naturally fit in, and take note of that? If I was going to create a Pinterest board for this brand, what would naturally fit in? And what would just stick out like a sore thumb? So you want to kind of create that content to where when they see your story, they're like, oh my gosh, that's great. We got to reshare it on our stories. This is perfect. So you want them to notice it in a way that's, again, aesthetically pleasing and mixes in with what they're going for.
That's amazing. You just dropped such a great idea to like create a Pinterest board for, I think, not only individual brands, but and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that means also strategically you should probably, if you have 10 dream brands, that like their aesthetic should align together in some way, because it might be really hard to cater to two brands that have completely opposite aesthetics. Like what's your thoughts on, how aligned all the brands you're going after should be in one kind of category versus, just saying, well, these are my favorites, so I'm going to try and go after all of them.
Yeah, and I think that's something where you have to keep in mind your personal brand and the brand itself and make sure that those are a good match. If it's not, maybe it's something that you are still passionate about it. Hey, I would love to pitch you to put this in stories, like knowing that it's not a good like mix into maybe your feed or your normal aesthetic, or it's something maybe you want to kind of workshop to your audience of, I've never talked about this before. Let me like introduce it to them in stories and then introduce it into my feed. So you want to not completely throw off who you are and your branding with the brand you're trying to work with too.
I have a quick note, and we've got a couple great questions that maybe we should try and answer real quick. But before we do, One of the things I heard you describing was a process that is professional in nature, intentional, and is something that is really a part of a personal brand for somebody. Is that for like how a creator approaches a brand deal matters, especially if a brand has three different creators to choose from, and they're all generally equivalent, maybe in aesthetic, style, and engagement or following. If I'm a brand, I'm choosing the one that I believe is going to work in a way that shows that they really care and not just take a paycheck, deliver the deliverables, and see you later. Is where would you fit that part of this unique way that maybe it's not unique, maybe it is unique, but do you bring that to the table in your highlights on Instagram? Is it part of a personal website? Is it part of the pitch that's going out in DMs over email? Is that valuable? Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I think especially in the pitching stage, it should, and if you hear one thing in this webinar, it should be a joy to work with you. It should be overwhelmingly easy to work with you. If you are emailed, you must email back within 24-hour span. You have to be professional going into this. That's what's going to get you the deals over someone that has more followers than you. Coming into it prepared, coming into it, if they send you a mood board of what they're looking for, send them back a mood board. Be like, this is my mood board to your mood board. These are my thoughts in a normal, like organized, creative way, make it you, but still present to them what they're going to see. Tell them this is what it's going to be like working with me, and then actually deliver on that. So I love to put together visuals of this is what I'm thinking for the partnership. Is this the direction you're thinking? And then the creative process goes so much faster and easier throughout the partnership as well. There's not such a struggle back and forth. If you are aligned on that overall vision up front, you'll find that they're not so picky with you of, oh, you didn't say that. Can you say it this way instead? Can you read this script instead of the script? If they know that you get it and you get them, then it's so much easier to sign the deal and move forward with that partnership and everyone be happy in the end.
They're going to give you referrals if you're doing that. They're going to be like 100%. You've got to work with so-and-so. This was totally different than everybody else.
Agencies talk, people talk, PR people talk, PR people jump from one brand to another. They get new brands all the time. You're either a joy to work with and you're awesome and you were easy and you delivered, or you were terrible and everyone's going to know it. And that is also something that you've got to know. It should be, again, it should be a joy to work with you, and that will spread like wildfire. Being terrible will also spread like wildfire.
So I think this ties really well into some of the questions that we're getting in, which is around emails. So I'm going to throw like a couple questions at you, so feel free to just pick and choose here. So do you normally start that conversation with a brand in DMs and then transfer to email? Are there certain brands that you start with email? And kind of part two of that is when you just talked about, presenting visuals and kind of presenting your ideas, do you do that upfront first kind of like email or communication, or do you have something else kind of that you're messaging first to brands?
So if you can get a person on the DMs, like if you're going back and forth and you're doing those organic mentions, they're like, thanks so much. Or if they heart it, say, hey, I would love to discuss a partnership. What's the best email? If you can get the best email out of them via DM, great, grab it, stop the conversation there, because you're not normally doing brand deals in the DMs. The social media person is not signing your contract. Those are not the same person. So if you can get the best contact via DM, do it, then take it to email. I start out saying, great fan of the brand, huge, like I've been using it for X many years. This is the products I love. Here's samples from, if you've posted the brand before, if you have sample content, link to it. Say, I did a reel, I included this denim, I included like this mascara and this Get Ready With Me, link to their content, link to your profile, put everything in front of them. Would love to discuss a partnership. If you have a media kit, which I hope you do, include that, give them all of the information they need up front. So they're like, oh, this person is professional. This person is prepared. And then you can start those conversations about, creative direction, if they even have a campaign right now, if they have budget for you. But introducing yourself, getting them in front of, getting your name in front of them is very important. And then go back to the DM and say, thank you so much. I just sent it. Looking forward to speaking with you. So they can check the inbox or alert the person that's checking the inbox. That's your way of following up to make sure, okay, look out for the email. It's coming.
Okay, amazing. Couple little detailed questions on that. Do you often reference that you were talking to someone in the DMs in that first email, or do you just approach it as if it's a completely new person and you're starting a fresh conversation?
I would reference, hey, I was chatting with you, with your social person, or, whoever it may be. If you get a name, great, reference the name. But thanks so much for sharing your email via DM. Happy to finish this conversation or continue the conversation here. But yes, say that.
Reference it. That way they know that you're involved in putting an effort and there's some relationship that already exists there. And I've got one more, and I'm sure Brian's got questions too. If not, we've got a ton of really great questions in the chat. So in terms of, sharing things up front with them, is a media kit better than a portfolio? Should you send linked examples plus a media kit plus a portfolio? Like, is there too much, and is there a hierarchy of kind of like what the best assets are to send to them?
There's always too much, because know that these people are getting thousands of emails to this inbox per day. So keep it short. I don't need to know where you were born and who your parents are. Very short paragraph when you email. But media kit versus portfolio, what are your strengths? Are your strengths content and creative content and gorgeous content that they can use as a hero image on their website? Lead with a portfolio. Or can you convert like nobody's business? Lead with a media kit that shows all of your stats. Maybe give a case study of, very short, but this type of partnership, if you're wanting a beauty partnership, give them an example of a similar beauty partnership of, I did 3 Instagram stories, I drove this many clicks, and this much revenue for this brand. What are your strengths, and play up to those strengths. If you have content specifically linked to that brand, yes, link that content in the body of the email. Don't attach TikToks. Link to the exact piece of content that they need to look at.
Yeah, one thing to think about is, what is the world that your customer lives in? They live in front of their computer. They are, they might be working on a 13 or 15-inch MacBook screen, dual timing client Zoom calls with influencer selection and review. They're always under a time crunch. They are never ahead of schedule on influencer campaigns, because you're working with a lot of people who are, some of them are falling out. People are like, oh, there was a conflict I forgot about. Actually, I changed my rate. It's like, oh, shoot, we've got 3 less we need. We got to go talk to 10 more to get the next 3 commit. So if that were you, how would you want to receive that information? You don't want to have to go, like Paula said, go dig through an attachment, pull that up. Now the videos are firing, there's sound. Oh shit, like I forgot to go mute on Zoom. It's playing in the back. So keep in mind the way that these people are operating. They primarily operate out of email for communication. They're multitasking. So simplify, streamline, because that signals, one, to somebody I want to work with, and 2, it gets your information to them faster.
Amazing. This is like so useful. And again, we'll send you guys all a follow-up email that has a lot of this, just kind of like bullet pointed key takeaways from this, because I think there's a lot of really just strategic and practical, and some of this is pretty easy to implement, right? Like, it's not figuring out your aesthetic. That's challenging, right? That's going to take time and work. But some of these you can just implement right away. Okay, you know what? I'm going to start tagging the brands that I'm already posting about in my Instagram stories. I think that's something like I know I could be better at. I am naturally promoting brands that I love. Sometimes I don't think about it because it is so kind of intuitive and natural, and to start thinking, you know what, maybe I could get a brand deal with this brand that I'm already a huge fan of. I'm going to ask you a question that's a little bit, off track. We're going to kind of go back a little bit to when you were talking about your transition through your career. But how did you transition your content from, being focused on the kind of more fashion side into travel, for example?
So, and I was doing like home and interior design before that. And then, so I feel like I had, more heavy on home design, and then, slowly kind of trying to bring things in. So, you know, if I was on a job site, I was also kind of storying my outfit. And then going on vacation, like making sure that I was talking about design elements of the hotel alongside travel. So you have to make sure it flows. It's a natural transition. And still, if you're doing a video of the hotel, making sure you're giving something over here to the people that are following you for design, making sure that you're then storing, oh, let me show you my outfit today for the fashion people. You have to, if you have multiple different buckets, know that you have to hit as many with content as possible to make sure that you're feeding your audience. And not siloing out all the people that might just bump through your story. It's like, oh, I'm not here for that. So try to naturally weave it through. So when I was, you know, I had a lot of people, I fly planes, I had a lot of people following me for piloting, and then making sure that I was then going to the hotel and like trying to, again, like weave through all of those things, and give something to everybody that's there. Not be everything for everyone, but snippets of different pieces that complete who you are as a profile online.
Did you have a process before each video where you mapped that out or piece of content? Because it seems like something that maybe would be hard to do on the fly.
With travel, yes. Travel, it's very hard to just show up and say, okay, now what do I do? Because you're in a fun place and you're, you know, trying to do content. So mapping out that content and making sure that, again, you're hitting everything that the hotel wants you to hit. You're doing things that are original and different. Also trying to story your outfits while you're on vacation. Making sure you're ordering, like I said, the meals that haven't been maybe captured on social media. That absolutely has to be scheduled. But with all content, making sure you scheduled it into your day. And I recently, someone said to do this and I did it, and it was extremely helpful, of putting into ChatGPT, what does the schedule look like for an influencer making $500,000 a year? And ChatGPT spit out a daily schedule of what that would look like. Use AI, use ChatGPT to your advantage, to help you think through and plan. If that's not your forte, it's there as a tool for you. So as you're, you know, trying to grow your following or grow your audience or grow your brand deals, use that as a resource and making sure that you're including a game plan of how to do it.
And just quick plug for Co-Creator. If you guys are on Creatorland, we have Co-Creator, which is a custom GPT that I created for this exact purpose. It's free to use. It just requires an OpenAI account, and it's trained on best practices. It's trained on the industry. It's trained on negotiation. I wrote a lot of these instructions myself with the help of materials that were shared with us on. So we have a tool that's ready to use for that exact purpose. And it puts really great things together. So I'm going to drop a link to that in the chat in just a moment, but had to quick plug there because it's free and it's really useful.
I'm gonna even add to that, because a lot of people don't really know how to get started with learning how to use a GPT kind of effectively and integrating it as part of their process. And I would suggest, like, one of the best ways that really helped me kind of like integrate naturally, like when I don't have to think about using it anymore, it's just like, oh, I'm going to use GPT for that, is go ahead and schedule 30 minutes, an hour, where you're going to just play and have conversation with Co-Creator.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to have a list coming into it of like, these are all the things I want to know. Like, sit down, know that you have at least 30 minutes and go, what possible questions could I ask, even if they're not the questions that you have? Because you just starting with one question, you're like, yeah, I'm kind of curious about like that. Maybe your goal right now is not to make 500K in a year, but like, be like, what would it be like to, you know, be an influencer who's making $1 million a year? What does that schedule look like, right? Like, you can borrow Paula's question, and it doesn't have to necessarily apply to you, but it can be this way to start training yourself in sparking new questions, because you'll get that answer. And in that answer, probably you're gonna have something else that you have a question about, of like, oh, the GPT said that I should be spending an hour a day Analyzing my content. How would I do that? How do I analyze my own content? And you can just kind of go down this rabbit hole of asking questions, and that'll help you really understand the different areas that you can consistently use co-creator or another GPT in terms of your creative process, so you're not having to get stuck in these places where you just don't know what to do. I think that's a brilliant idea. Go ahead.
Love that. One thing, given the time that we have left, I want to peel the curtain back a little bit on negotiation, because I think Paula brings a really unique perspective to the table for us, but having been and is continuously on both sides of that table, running Urban Legend, and Paula, feel free to share a little bit more about how Urban Legend operates. But you've been on the agency side too. I'd love to share with our audience a little bit more about what is the brand thinking on the negotiation? What is a good, respectful way to try and defend a price point that you believe you have, and how should you think about establishing your price points, if you wouldn't mind?
I think it's important to get as many data points as you can about what your price should be. I think that I've seen prices all over the place. Some that I'm like, this is right where it should be. Some that I'm like, oh, that's not a great deal, but like we need to book her immediately. And others that I'm like, what planet are you on? It's not this one. So I think, again, using co-creator, like what are people getting with my story view count, with my engagement? You have to be realistic. And that being said, know that you're going to get lowballed a lot. You have to be willing to say, this is what I'm worth, say it, shut up, back away. And know that if you have to say no to that deal, you have to say no to that deal. Offer them something different, because that brands have that price and they have a budget. There's only so much movement they can make, and that the budget is the budget. So if they come at you with a reel and the price is too low, say, unfortunately, I can't do a reel at that price. My reels start at this price. How about a 3-part story set? Give them something different to grab onto instead of just saying, no, I charge this. Give different, what are you willing to do for that price? Don't close the door if you really want to work with that brand. And know if it's a brand that this is their first moment with you, this is their first interaction with you, and you really want to work with that brand consistently, say this, I usually charge this. However, I would love to work with this brand. Let's do this to start out. I'm hoping to create a long-lasting partnership with you, and know that you can grow in that. A lot of partnerships, start somewhere, and then all of a sudden you're doing a year-long deal with them. But know that some brands just don't have the budget, and you have to know where you say, that's not even worth my time. And then you move on to the next one.
I love what you just said, because coming from like a entrepreneur kind of background, basically you're telling creators to create their offer stack and make sure that you have different packages at different price points, instead of where I see a lot of creators, this is like the minimum I'll ever take for anything, and it goes up from there. There's probably things that you would be happy to get paid less for, because it's so easy for you to do. So I think that's really smart, especially if that's going to be an entry point and you do an amazing job, and that allows you to build that relationship with the brand. Maybe their budget changes, in the next quarter, in the next round, or they're able to allocate more of their budget to working with you because you did such a good job on kind of that, entry level price point thing. And I would imagine brands are pretty gun shy about the first deal that they're doing with the creator. Have you seen those price points kind of go up over time in terms of, if you work with a brand and they like what you're doing, that they're willing to offer you more?
So many times, more times than not. They're offering, this is all we have left. This is our budget. Maybe lowering it down, like I said, to content that you're comfortable with. Maybe ask for more creative control. There's different ways to make it worth your time, and maybe it takes less time. But like I said, be a joy to work with. Their first experience with you should be so incredible that they're like, oh, next round, next budget, she's number 1 on our list. Make sure that you're packaging your analytics, you're submitting those analytics. It was so wonderful to work with you. Love to be considered for another partnership. More times than not, when I'm packaging it that way, they're coming back for the next 3 months with more partnerships. You you have to be professional in this world, and you have to, again, like I said, make it so easy for them that you're top of their list all the time.
Yep. In your follow-up, I'd love to make sure we run through a checklist of like what is in that follow-up package. And then I'm curious if this is included, asking them for a quote.
So with my package follow-up, it's everything you think they would need, all the duh things. So you're giving them, if it's stories, you're giving them screenshots of your analytics, making sure they have those screenshots, the full page of the screenshot, because when you're scrolling through your stories, it cuts it in half, making sure that everything is included, making sure that your content that went live with any, anything that written over it is there, making sure your raw content is also there. Sometimes even if they don't have usage rights, they still want the raw content to either put in a deck or show the board, whatever it may be. Give them everything. And then like a follow-up of, hey, it was so great. These are my notes for next time. This is where I think this could head in the future. Give them the creative thought process for how to work with you next. Especially with, clothing brands. Hey, it was amazing to work with you. I have this trip coming up. I'm attending this event 3 months from now. Would love to partner with you on this. I would love to be wearing this brand. Make sure that you put that in their hands. And then, yeah, like if it's a brand you've worked with a couple of times, my media kit has a full list of quotes from brands about me, how great it was to work with me, how easy it was to work with me, how professional I was. I send that when I send my media kit.
Very cool.
Amazing.
Mind, should we do some Q&A since we've got about 10 minutes left?
We've got a ton of really good questions here. So I'm going to go back to one that was right at the beginning, because I said, I think it was Nicole, that I would ask this to you. So in terms of the, collaborations with other creators, which might be where, a really good place for someone, and this kind of, I'll tie this into a recent question, which is what if your analytics, aren't that great yet? I would assume that collaborations with other creators are going to be a really useful way. One, to just be more creative with your content and potentially get some new ideas. But also I've noticed sometimes, content that has two creators and it can do better and get more reach through the algorithm and to more audience. So how did you go about in terms of setting up those collabs? Did you do that through DM? Was that through email? Is it different, messaging with creators than it is with brands?
Yeah, I think that starts out that's how we used to grow our followings, like back again, dinosaur ages. It was going to like creator events and sharing in each other's audiences if there's a creator that's similar to you. Again, create the relationship first. Making sure you're following each other, commenting on each other's content, showing the love up front, and then like naturally falling into the, hey, I would love to collaborate with you on something. Is that something you would consider? But making sure that like you guys are friends first, like social media friends. So there, yeah, a lot of like back, when I first started, there was a lot of collaborating. Make sure that you know how to add value to that person. I think is the biggest thing, especially if you're smaller than them, if your following isn't as grand as theirs is, that's probably fine, but figure out what is my value add to this person. You don't want to be the charity case in someone's DMs. So make sure that you have that thought out and that planned out of, a lot of the times my friends will be like, hey, I got this trip. Let's both go. We'll shoot each other. Sometimes it's, if you're going on a travel partnership, it's so hard to like hand your mom the camera and like try to show her what to do. And if you're doing a photographer, you have to pay for the it's so much easier to bring another content creator. So we do that a lot. Hey, I just got this deal with the Four Seasons. Let's both go. That's a great example of a good way to partner, having a partnership they don't, including them. Maybe they have a different audience than you do. Great way to partner up.
And that just sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Also, like,
You don't have to explain of like, I'm going to pull out my tripod. Like, it's so much less awkward if you're with another creator, and then you just get so much more accomplished.
That's amazing. That's amazing. In terms of, let's see this question here. Let me scroll up. So the contracting part of it, how worried should a creator be that a brand might use their content in a way that like isn't a part of that agreement, like if they're sending them everything, like how cautious or guarded should creators be? And then what have you seen from, the brand side in terms of like, is the brand providing the contract? Should the creator kind of present, here's what I'm willing to include? How does that whole negotiation process go from both sides?
You should definitely bring up usage in the beginning, because that's something that a lot of brands honestly will try to slide in. And it's something you should be getting paid for if you're getting paid for the brand deal. Usage doesn't normally just come. Organic usage, if they want to repost the stories, whatever it may be. But if they're putting paid behind your content, that is something you should get paid for. So make sure that you're looking for that in the contract. Ask about that up front when you're negotiating those things. Okay, 3-frame story set, tagging these things. What about usage? Making sure that you're bringing that up and you have that communication via email as well as the contract is always helpful. It does happen. I've had plenty of friends that, all of a sudden their face is on an ad and they're like, I didn't approve this. It does happen. So make sure that you are bringing that to their attention up front of, I know about usage. I'm asking about it right now. So you can negotiate that. But unfortunately, it is something that brands will try to just throw into your contract. So make sure that you're looking out for that. And another great way to use ChatGPT is, hey, analyze this contract for me if you don't have an agent.
All right, one more question that I have, and I think this is a really good one because you've brought it up a couple times in terms of like meeting other people at events and being in, I assume, physical rooms that you didn't, necessarily feel like qualified for. So how important or like how much of an impact do you think it had to meet up with people in person? How did you find events? How did you kind of get your foot into the door into this kind of like in-person creator economy that we're all very aware exists?
And I've like moved around a couple of times and it's so hard because I still get emails for events in Miami. I'm like, I don't live in Miami, but I'd love to go. But figuring out who's throwing the events, especially if you live in a big city, if you're in New York or if you're in LA, if you're in Austin, or if you're in Miami, there's PR firms throwing these events. Figure out who those PR firms are. Be friends with them. Start following them on Instagram, send them a DM. Oh my gosh, this looks like so much fun. I would love to join next time. I would love to be considered for an invite. Send them an email. Hey, I'm in the area. I'm a creator. I would love to be considered for the guest list. Once you get on that guest list, it's impossible to get off. You can't, you're on it for life. So if you can find your way in, know that just kind of flows. But there are agencies that are hosting these events that are throwing these like grand openings or these, the fashion week parties, whatever it may be. If you get in with those agencies, like I said, you're in for life. But it is important to go to these events. Someone said to me very early on, like, if you're a normal person, you should be talking on stories, you should be going to events, you should be making friends, you should be networking. Some creators are introverts and they're not that person. If you're that person, be that person. Some of these like influencer events can also just be so awkward. Be friendly, be nice. If you follow a creator, tell them. Don't be the weird person that's like, I'm so-and-so, and don't not act like you don't know who they are. Be like, oh my gosh, I saw that you posted this last week. Absolutely love that. But become friends with people. Like I think that you don't be intimidated by people. I think like the saying it's lonely at the top is like very true. These people that have millions and millions of followers, just be a normal human around them because they probably don't get that very often. But don't not approach someone at an event because you have 10,000 followers and they have 2 million. Go up and just be nice. Be
Totally.
a human.
One quick plug, because you guys know I like to throw my resources in the chat. It's like, I feel like that's becoming my thing a little bit. So we're on our second one, but maybe it's becoming my thing. The platform we use to host the event and get your guys' registrations is called Luma. And there are a couple other ones like that, but I really like that solution. And they have a discover page. So you can go in there, look at your city, and see what events are going on in your city right on that solution. And so checking that out on a regular basis is a way for you to see what's going on. And it tends to be more modern, culture, startup-y tech, creator stuff that's being used by Luma because of just who they target. So that's worth checking out. I popped the link in chat to that, but that's also another way to discover events?
No, that's where hashtags come in handy a lot. A lot of these people throwing events that are looking to create a list very quickly. Every time that I'm in the Hamptons for the summer or I'm in Miami during the winter, if I'm using those location hashtags, I seem to get an influx of, we're having this event tonight. There's an art gallery opening this weekend. They're looking through those hashtags of, hashtag Miami influencer, hashtag Miami blogger. That's where those geo-targeting hashtags really come in handy, is for events.
On the flip side, are events using specific types of hashtags for their event posts, or not as much?
Not as, like, I would say that, like I said, there's these PR agencies that run most events, and they are looking for, who have we missed? Who do we need to invite? Just like your brands are trying to throw together a partnership and they're like, oh, these 5 people dropped out. Same with events. Like they want their event to be fun and full. So as people are not RSVPing, they're trying to add people. Make sure you're one of those people they add, and make sure that your location is in your bio. That is one of the biggest things of, hey, make sure that they know where you live. That's one of the biggest, that and influencers not having their email anywhere is the most infuriating thing. If you want brand deals, please have your email somewhere where people can get it.
Amazing. Well, this has been incredible. I'm sure there's a couple questions we didn't get to in the chat, but we'll follow up with you guys on those. Paula, thank you so much for, joining us. I guess before we kind of do the final closeout, are there any other just top of mind things after this kind of conversation that you really want to either like hammer home, or that you didn't get the chance to, talk about?
I think the biggest things to hammer home is, if you want to be a professional creator, you have to be professional. You have to treat everyone on the other side of the screen like you're never going to shake them, like they're your boss and you're going to encounter this person so many times over. Know their names, get to know them personally, remember milestone events in their lives. All my PR people, I know their kids' names, I know their birthdays, I send them little gifts at Christmas. But treat people like you're going to be in a relationship with them for a long time, and treat it like a profession. This is your job. Treat it like a job.
Amazing. And we just got Dia. Thank you so much for the positive feedback. I'd love it. Everyone, go ahead, comment. Let us know how you liked the webinar. If there's any things coming up that you want us to talk about topic wise, go ahead while Brian kind of closes us out here. Feel free to share any feedback.
I just wanted to double down on that. I mean, we're going to be, upping our game a little bit with making a webinar page. We want to be showing off the content, key moments from these webinars. I love them. I want to continue to do them. So when we're going to send out a recap email, if we can get your feedback on if you found it valuable, if there's things that you want us to cover, we would like to feature those quotes in that environment. So, everybody loves compliments, but we want that feedback too. So if you enjoyed it, let us know. If there's things that you would like us to change or add, let us know. We're listening. We're here. And thank you guys so much for being here. This is always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Paula, for sharing.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's incredibly valuable.
And we can't forget, where can people find you, get in touch with you? Are there any particular types of people you're actively looking to connect with? How can people, stay in touch with you after?
You can find me on Instagram. Honestly, sending me a DM is faster than texting or calling me. So know that I respond to all of my DMs, and it might be a voice memo, but I will get to it. So please find me on Instagram. It's just my name, @Paula Dhier. And I'm happy to help you guys however I can.
Amazing. One last question here for Brian. Where are things at? I know I'm going to keep teasing this until it comes out, but we've been talking about the Creator Academy. Do you want to share just real quick what that is and where in the process things are with it?
Yeah, so we have our first initial 5 or 6 articles on the university side of our newsletter. So newsletter.creatorland.com. University is like a tag up there at the top, and then we've got 5 or 6 articles that break down both how to be successful on Creatorland, but also topics like networking, leveraging AI, brief outreach, that kind of thing. And our plan is to leverage a lot of these insights from the webinar to continue to expand that space. So if there are key topics that we haven't covered yet, are super interesting to you guys, let us know, because we want to make that content available to everybody. and help everybody succeed faster.
Amazing. So you guys keep your eyes open for both in follow-up emails and future webinars as we continue to build the resources for the Creator University. And then on my side, what I run is Community Launchpad, which is really specifically focused on helping creators build out their own online communities. So if you have any questions about community building, again, I'll drop something in the email that goes out to you guys. And that'll be a topic for future webinars as well. But we'll keep you in the loop as we're working on all of this. This is, for us, a live project that we get to share the progress of, that we get to connect with you guys. It's not just we're creating, content for a talk show, right? This is an active project that's integrated into Brian's ecosystem, my ecosystem. And so I think there's going to be a lot that we learn and get to share with you guys along the way, and really want you to be a part of that journey. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, everyone who attended. We really appreciate it. And keep your eyes out for the next one, because we've already got it lined up, and it's very exciting.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.